I now give the floor to the representative of Greece. Thank you very much, President. I would like to begin by wishing the best of success to France during this month, and I assure them of our full cooperation. And I'd also like to thank Denmark for their successful steering of the presidency last month. I would also like to thank the briefers for their comprehensive and interesting presentations.
The protection of civilians in armed conflict remains a cornerstone of the Security Council agenda and a core obligation of the international community under international humanitarian law. An increasingly more contested, violent and dangerous world for civilians in armed conflict required collective actions to strengthen compliance with international humanitarian law and address implementation challenges. 26 years ago, in 1999, briefing the Security Council, former ICRC President Cornelius Sommaruga spoke of 20 active conflicts. Today, more than 120 conflicts are recorded by ICRC. Worldwide, and particularly in certain parts of the African continent, the Middle East, Europe, Asia, and Latin America, the nature of armed conflicts has undergone profound changes, creating a new conflict landscape. Contemporary armed conflicts have become more protracted and complex, marked by involvement of non-state actors, urban warfare, cyber threats, and the use of new technologies of warfare. Moreover, the growing use of digital technologies can amplify the spread of harmful information and incite to violence. These changes significantly exacerbate risks of civilians and pose challenge to humanitarian action as well as threats to humanitarian and UN personnel. Resolution 2730, drafted by Switzerland, adopted last year and co-sponsored by a large number of other member states, 90, including my own country, Greece, has already become an indispensable part of the UN normative framework pertaining to the protection of civilians. The resolution emphasizes the protection of humanitarian and UN and associated personnel, including national and locally recruited personnel, and the premises and assets. It also highlights misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, especially on digital platforms, as a growing challenge that undermines trust in UN and humanitarian organizations and exposes humanitarian and UN and associated personnel, including national and locally recruited personnel, to risk. This resolution underlies the centrality of accountability and protection of civilians' efforts and reaffirms the need to end impunity for serious violations of international humanitarian law and other international crimes, including those involving attacks against humanitarian personnel and UN and associated personnel. Mr. President, as UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported last November, the death toll of humanitarian workers in 2024 has become the deadliest on record, with 377 killed globally. This is a grim reality on the ground. Resolution 2730 delivers a strong message, not just of moral imperative, but also of the need to have the operational agility to prevent and mitigate risks threatening humanitarian and UN personnel. Humanitarian personnel is a beacon of hope and a relief to people suffering in conflict zones. They fulfill the duty facing immense constraints, including attacks against their lives, bureaucratic impediments, and the impact of public perception of misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech pertaining to humanitarian actors in their work. Despite all those dangers, humanitarian UN personnel persist, remain, and deliver life-saving support to millions of people in armed conflicts worldwide. It is our duty, therefore, as member of the Security Council, to ensure that they fulfill their duty in safety and dignity and with the credit they deserve. Mr. President, we need concerted efforts, including in the Security Council, to safeguard compliance to international humanitarian law and human rights law, highlight current trends, adopt a more comprehensive approach to the protection of civilians, break the pattern of violations, and ensure accountability for the perpetrators of harm. Protection of civilians in armed conflict is a fundamental prerequisite for lasting peace and security. It is our hope that the upcoming Protection of Civilian Week and the UN Security Council open debate of protection of civilians next May will contribute to decisive actions being taken to safeguard the lives and the dignity of civilians caught in armed conflict. Mr. President, in concluding, let me stress that for 8 decades now, the UN constitutes a common ground to maintain peace and security. We have to live up to our commitments to protect civilians and to ensure that humanitarian and UN personnel carry out their work in a conducive, legal, administrative and security framework. Je vous remercie.
I thank you. I thank the Permanent Representative of Greece for a statement.